Good evening, everyone. Ads here from Unity Trading Group. Welcome to another update. Of course, we're looking at BTC tonight, but before we begin, hit those links down below. Check out our website, check out our YouTube channel as well. The big buttons underneath the description box, of course. You can continue the conversation with us by following the links down below. But BTC, where are we at? Not very much has happened, since we spoke last. We were looking at this 18,000 level of demand since last week. But a couple of things has happened since then. So let's explore, let's see how we got to this point, and let's see where we can expect or where we can speculate where BTC can move from here. So this level of demand at the moment is drawn on this candle from the 27th of November 2020, where we have this level screaming at us at the moment with the retest, where we've had the seemingly looking, I should use better wording there. We had a market pivot point that came to this area and then moved to the upside with a retest to the right hand side of this pivot to really confirm that this level exists, and we are to look right now to see where this would eventually come back to. So with the current chart, we've actually hit this point pretty much right on the money. So it's at about 17, let's say 17,500. So a nice round number as well to coincide with that. But there's two real options from here. First of which is we come up and retest the most current level of supply, which sits at around 30k. So from around 20 to 30k, there's a $10,000 swing in between those two levels, as we see it right now on the chart. And you're looking at around a 70% gain or a 70% move from around 17.5, where we did bounce before, to around 30k. Excuse me. Secondary to this, there's a couple of options that we can explore as well, where we just move to the right-hand side, of course, and we continue this bear market, continue the low market sentiment, I guess, and the low volume situation that we find ourselves in with cryptocurrency and the higher level, the higher caps in general, like BTC and the likes, and we move to the right hand side. But this also gives the alts, an opportunity to flourish, an opportunity to get to claw back some of that market cap and move to the upside. So that's another scenario. And then the next one is we look left again and we break to the downside and move down towards 11 or 12,000, which is the most relevant level of demand to the downside at the moment. Now, the sentiment in general on the market is bearish, where we've been making lower lows and lower highs for quite some time now, where we continue the trend to the downside, where we've made lower highs, and of course, on the flip side, we've made lower lows. So nothing out of the ordinary there. And there's every right, or there's every what's the best word for it? There's every possibility, that we can move to the downside towards that 12k mark and test the next level of demand. However, on the 1 day time frame, we take in a lot of data. We take in the longest, not the longest, but we take in a very long distance or periods for the steamroller indicator. That holds true for RSI and most of the moving oscillators that we've looked at in the past. Of course, take in 14 or even more periods for the daily time frame. You take in the most data. Secondary to this, our levels in terms of our moving oscillators are quite oversold in this point in time, where we see the market at the lower extremities of what we're used to. And of course, it's no surprise that we can stay around oversold for quite some time, where we have in the past. And of course, that holds true with being overbought when we are moving to the upside. But if you look at past history, we don't stay oversold anywhere as much as we do overbought. So BTC tends to have higher and more sharp runs to the upside than it does to the downside. So that is in of itself encouraging for BTC. And it's also encouraging for the steamroller indicator, because it has been, correct, I guess, if you were to call it that, in the past, looking at, previous data. So what does that mean for BTC, and what can we expect in the next little while if we're pretty low on the moving oscillators and looking for some sort of cool off or recovery bounce at least to give us or an immediate reaction to the sell off that we saw from the 7th of June, and then moving to the downside towards 18. Well, Fibonacci comes to play where the 23 we've retested once before, the 38, 50, 61 are the areas that we're looking at in the immediate term. However, most notable is the 38.2. If I can draw the circle correctly, there we go. 38.2, which will bring us back around 23 to 24,000. That's just before the 50, before we make a decision on whether we move to the upside from here or whether we continue on retest the level at 18. I think that's the next play, in my opinion, because we've moved to the downside with quite some force without any sort of recourse to the upside, where we've just tested the 23.6. It is a recourse, or it is a bounce, I guess, from 18 to 20 to 21 100, but it's not significant enough to give our indicators enough time to cool off and anything like that. If we're looking on a 4-hour time frame, then the tune does change, of course, where we're looking at the steamroller indicator being, at the higher extremity. We are in the median area, and of course, that holding true for RSI as well. So on the 4-hour, of course, there's more, fluff in the middle of that, type of movement there, and on the daily time frame, we're not observing that. But the daily in general, in a general sense, the macro in a general sense needs a little bit of upside to really cool off its oscillators. Of course, on the 4-hour, there might be more opportunity on a lower time frame, of course, but on a 1 day, which I am most involved with, we are looking at seemingly the 38 and even the 50 at 23 and 25. I think is the most appropriate levels to look for at this time. Before we make a decision on whether we are going to 10 or 12 or we are going to 29, 30. I guess that's the two options that we've got there, up or down, really. But in the sense of the market and, Twitter and influencers and bits and pieces calling lower extremities of the market like 12.5 and 10,000 and even 7 and 8,000. I think you need to take that with a grain of salt, and of course give yourself every option to TA this yourself and give yourself or come to a conclusion with your own words, because last time we were at 3,000 we were calling 1,500 and that didn't come. So of course I'm keeping it with a grain of salt, and I'm keeping everyone on their toes and keeping it speculative at the moment, because at the moment we have no validation that we are moving towards 12 or 10 until we break this level of demand, which is quite strong, might I add you, because we did have a decent recourse or decent bounce off this level before we start, of course, saying that we're going to 10 and 12, continuing the oversold trend. So I'd like to see BTC head up to 50, 38, even 61.8, the levels of fibs on the 1 day, to give us an indication of direction and an indication of if it's going to be a recovery drive towards 30 or not. Let us know down below. Of course, not financial advice. We don't do this at UTG or on TradingView at all, but I'd really love to know your thoughts and opinions on what we can expect, or what you can expect over the coming 7, 10, 12 days, or whatever you might want to add to the chat. Of course, follow the links down below. You can find us more in that area, of course, and you can continue the conversation with us by following those links as well. I'm Ads from UTG. It's been a longer session this evening, but it's been a decent amount of information, I hope. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.